Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. My name's Justin, and this is Dad Discovers, where I'm learning about the world through YouTube. Today we're checking out a video titled 10 Things Not to Do When Visiting Australia. Before we even jump into this, let me know some of the crazy things you guys see when people come in and visit Australia, especially Americans, because I'm sure you've seen, or at least some of you have seen some pretty crazy things. So let me know that below, and let's jump in and see what Mr. Sam Ford has to say about what not to do in Australia.
If you come to Australia and do any of these 10 things, people won't necessarily say something to your face. Wait, what am I saying? Yes, they will. Australians will almost definitely say something to you. But the worst part about these things, most of them aren't obvious. They are tiny cultural secrets you don't even realise you're breaking until you feel that awkward silence or until someone goes,
"Oh yeah, on you, mate. Good on you."
Wait, are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to the other British guy making a YouTube video in my garden.
Right. Anyway, so today I'm exposing the unspoken rules that even Aussies forget they follow. Let's get into it. Hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor documenting my journey of rebuilding my life in Australia. Now in Australia, I've embarrassed myself more times than I can count. I'm almost like a walking warning sign for other tourists now. Now don't worry, none of the points in this video are going to get you locked up if you break any of them. They're just frowned upon socially. So number one, do not throw Fahrenheit or miles into a conversation. I've discovered that units of measurements are taken very seriously in Australia. Now, if you're completely lost by this, well, some countries like the United States of America, Liberia.
But I feel like that's the same over here. If somebody was to come here from another country and talk about Celsius and kilometers, I feel like a large portion of the country would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't use that over here, whatever. But yeah, I get that.
Cayman Islands, they use Fahrenheit to measure temperature, whereas in Australia,
especially when it comes to Fahrenheit, since it's just us and these two other countries that use Fahrenheit, it honestly doesn't make sense. I mean, I understand it because I've known it my entire life, and I'm still trying to learn Celsius, but I think Celsius is easier to understand why with the 0 to 100, and then everything scales in between it. Like that makes sense to me. It's just remembering what 30 is or what 18 is. Like that's going to take me some time, but yeah, I get it.
And the UK, you would use Celsius. So in Australia, if you
don't
use
want
Fahrenheit instead of Celsius in a conversation with an Australian, they'll probably call you out for it. Probably not in a rude way or anything, but they'll probably, make a bit of fun of you. Now, I didn't think it was that deep, right? Until I started using miles in Australia. So for context, in Australia, you use kilometers, whereas in the UK, we use miles. And to be fair, the majority of the world does use kilometers, so I understand why it's really important to be able to understand both. Now, I'm an avid runner, and having used a lot of British and American training plans, my brain completely thinks in miles when it comes to running. It's just something that's become a complete habit to me. I've mentioned before that, I prefer to think in miles, and even saying that alone, it can rub people up the wrong way. If I could give you...
I don't think it should rub any up the wrong way. If that's what you're used to, that's what you're used to. Like, it would be kind of crazy if I was like, all right, from now on, I'm only measuring in kilometers, but then trying to interact within the American society. Like, it just wouldn't really match up. And I would have, 100% of people looking at me like I'm crazy over here.
A piece of advice is try not to mention Fahrenheit or miles in Australia. You're not going to get locked up for it. No one's going to shout at you, but people do get a bit aggy about it, I'm not going to lie. Number two is assuming winter isn't cold. But when I officially moved to Australia, winter came, as it inevitably does, and it actually was so chilly that I needed to put on winter clothes. Shock. You're probably thinking, well, Sam, are you surprised that you got a bit cold in winter? Actually, yes, I was. In Australia, I thought it was going to be hot in the winter. That was the lie I was led to believe, especially...
Yeah, I feel like that's a common misconception. When you think Australia, you automatically think hot and beaches and, all that good stuff. But you're a big country, and it could be hot in one area, cooler in another, and the wintertime cold. Hot and cold, I get it. It's just, I think it's a common misconception to the average American that Australia is hot.
living in Brisbane, Queensland, the sunshine state where it's always sunny and hot, as people like to tell you in the UK. But when it's winter and night comes, you need that heater on, right? Which is also an AC unit. Amazing invention. You're getting into your doona, you're getting a bit cozy, and it's lovely. Even in the UK, it's kind of hammered into you by other people. Like, oh, you're off to Australia, oh, you're gonna be boiling, you're gonna be sweating the whole time. Even in winter, mate,
So
it's
even
lovely
the UK
there. And there is nothing worse
has that
than
same
being
common
cocky about,
misconception.
oh, I'm gonna be on the beach the whole time, and then you get there and you're actually shivering in your little Airbnb. So make sure you do your research on where you're going to in Australia. If you know you're...
And it probably doesn't help that our seasons are the opposite. So if somebody's going on vacation from here in the summertime, when the vast majority of people go on vacation and they go to Australia, they're going in the dead of winter.
Going somewhere like Tasmania, where it iconically gets very cold, and especially if you're going in autumn and winter, definitely pack some winter clothes, okay? The kangaroos and koalas might not be shivering, but you definitely will be. And a quick reminder, if this video gets 20,000 likes, I'll actually go play a full game of AFL as a total beginner, which if you haven't seen the sport, basically means I'm signing up to get absolutely flattened by human tanks. So make sure you hit that like button. Number 3, never do the cliche Australian lines, like, oh, put another shrimp on the barbie. And definitely don't mock Australians by quoting H2O, just add water, where you go, nar, clear. And the reason why I say that is, as a very, naive Brit, when I first met my Australian wife, I was, trying to show off and impress her a little bit while we were dating and getting to know each other. And I would say a few of those cliche things that you do as a tourist because you think it's going to make other people, especially Australians, laugh, like, oh, you get us. And she would just politely, but very awkwardly laugh. The more time went on, I realised, maybe she's just very polite and I'm actually not that funny. And my wife would agree, Australians are just tired of hearing all of those cliche lines like, put another shrimp on the barbie, which was from this iconic tourism ad to get more people to come to Australia. And the locals will have heard it a million times before from thousands of other tourists like yourself, and you might get an awkward sympathy laugh, but no one's really having a good time, if I'm being honest. So just be yourself, you get way more laughs that way, and you're more likely to make mates with other Australians if you do so. Number 4 is never go out without your hat, your sunglasses, and your sunscreen. Of course, we all forget to do these things from time to time. You can automate all of this by literally putting your sunglasses, your hat, your keys, and your sunscreen right by the front door. You can literally slip, slop, slap that sunscreen, put the sunnies on, put your hat on, get the keys, and you're good to go. It really is that easy. Now, I could almost guarantee that there's nowhere on earth that has the same level of sun safety culture as Australia. It is hammered into you as a kid in Australia, like no hat, no play. You can't go outside at lunchtime at school and go play outside if you don't have your wide brim hat on that's protecting you from the UV exposure. Whereas in the UK...
Yeah, even when I went to Hawaii a couple years ago, there were signs posted in the hotel that kind of like a reminder to put sunscreen and everything on. But yeah, I understand like why, especially since you guys have mentioned things in the comments of other videos on, make sure the importance of putting sunscreen on.
Okay, we're just not taught that. I've talked about this before. I went paddleboarding in Australia one day. It was a cloudy day and I thought, it's cloudy, I don't need sunscreen. I got the worst sunburn of my life and you couldn't even see blue sky that day. I remember when I told my wife Maddie about the fact that in the UK on a slightly sunny day we might only put on SPF 15. She was absolutely shocked by that. She couldn't believe that we were putting on anything under SPF 50. So sorry to sound like an overprotective dad right now. Australia has some of the highest amounts of melanoma, skin cancer, and you don't want to be one of those numbers. So remember, slip, slop, slap, seek, slide, which is the brilliant sun safety campaign created by Cancer Council. In fact, they do a really good sunscreen that you can buy in most supermarkets in Australia. Number 5 is try to order Foster's beer in a pub in Australia. Now, in the UK, for what felt like the majority of my childhood, I would see Foster's beer TV commercials, and they would always supposedly be Australian actors and characters on screen. They were basically very enthusiastic about it being, a brilliant Australian beer. And, this is what we Australians drink. And then I go to Australia and I actually don't see it anywhere. And it can actually be quite hard to find in places. So even if you do go to a pub where you can order it, right? It's fine if you want to drink it, but especially if you're with Australian mates and locals, people will probably have a good laugh if you order a Foster's, especially if the pub doesn't have it. They'll be like, mate, we drink other stuff here. I personally don't drink alcohol anymore, but when I did, I loved beer. So I actually drink non-alcoholic beer, and one of the best no-alcohol beers I've ever had is by Heaps, which is an Australian company. So if you are visiting Australia or New Zealand, definitely pick up some Heaps no-alcohol beer. The stuff is absolutely delicious. Now, ordering a Foster's, it's not a crime, but it does kind of make you look like not only have you not done any research on what you could drink in Australia, but it kind of shows a lack of wanting to sort of assimilate with the community, with the locals, and, you know, maybe try what they have. It is kind of like going to Rome and ordering a Domino's pizza. It's like, you can do it, but why? Why? You could have had a proper one. You can literally just strike up a conversation with the bartender and you can say, what would you recommend? They'll absolutely love you for it. Now, it's funny, these little rules, they kind of got to me at first, right?
I'm surprised that he even mentioned the Fosters because he said he's from the UK. I thought that was just like an American misconception. Like I thought that was, you know, our marketing that told us that Foster's was Australian beer. But I mean, obviously, maybe it is American and it just went over there too. But even in the UK, he's heard that.
Right, because so much of my job as an actor is to be able to pick up on other people's social cues and to be observant around life around you. However, there were certain things that when I moved, I just wasn't picking up, and it felt like I couldn't keep up with everything, and I was just this weird, strange, awkward British guy in the corner. But then I realised, especially since being with my wife, that Australians, they're not looking for perfection. They'll just notice if you try. They'll notice if you're making an effort. And honestly, speaking from experience, Australians are genuinely some of the most welcoming, friendly, and caring people I've ever met. Besides my own loved ones in the UK who give me so much love and affection, outside of that circle, I do sometimes feel quite isolated and lonely in the UK. But if you go to Australia, most people will welcome you with open arms. But as long as you're trying to make the effort, they'll just appreciate you for trying. Number 6 is talking loudly on public transport. This is the exact same rule in the UK, right?
Yeah, this drives me crazy here, and a lot of people do it here. Not in public transport, because we really don't have public transport like that, but just in general. Like you're out at a restaurant, and I'm not talking about like a nightclub or anything. I'm talking about like an actual sit-down family restaurant. And, you know, there's somebody 8 tables away, and you can hear every word of their conversation. Or they get on the phone, people get on the phone, and you can hear every word. Or they talk on speakerphone a lot, which kind of drives me wild. But I don't understand why people in a crowded room of strangers answers their phone and flips it on the speakerphone. I don't know, but it bothers me. So all that to say, yes, I get it.
If you're on a business call, right, and you're shouting down the phone, you're like, Dave, no, I want 10,000 of those beans. It's a big bean contract. People, right, especially in Australia, I reckon they would probably call you out for it. Whereas in the UK, we awkwardly sit at the back of the bus and we sort of just grumble. Whereas in Australia,
that's how overall how it is here. Everybody just kind of tolerates it, even though everybody's hating it.
You think someone would go up to you and be like,
call it
hey,
out,
mate,
Australia.
Enough of that.
Call it
now,
out.
thank you. So just be considerate of others. People, you know, we're all struggling with our own problems. You don't want to add to someone's plate by being very, very loud. Number 7 is forget to greet shop staff. Now, when you typically go into a retail store in Australia, there will usually be a very friendly person who says, hello mate, how are you? How you going? Anything I can help you with today? And especially if you're feeling, you know, a little bit shy that day, if you suffer from social anxiety, I know I did when I was at university, but you only need to be polite and friendly back. A little hello, how you going? Is all you need. But this is really important because even if you're a tourist, even if English isn't your first language, just to smile back, even if you can't understand what they're saying.
I feel like this wouldn't be that big of an issue for Americans. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of the same thing here. And for the most part, when we walk into a shop, it's like, hey, how's it going? Or how you doing? Or, you know, whatever. There's some kind of small chit chat of a greeting. So I'm sure it's the same there. I could see if there was a language barrier. Like you might walk in and just kind of smile. Or you catch somebody on a bad day. You know, they're having a bad day and they walk in upset or mean and not paying attention to the world around them. Or on the phone, not paying attention to the world around them. I could see that.
that can go much further than sort of awkwardly ignoring them and hiding behind a shelf in the store. They'll maybe be a little bit offended and they'll probably be thinking, have I done something wrong to them? Same goes for public transport. If you're getting off the bus, it's nice to, do a little wave or say thank you to the bus driver. Yeah. It's just the rhythm of Australia, and once you get into it, I reckon you'll start enjoying it. Number 8 is say mate in the wrong way. Now in the UK, we say mate all the time, but what I've discovered is that we are generally saying mate in a very friendly and chirpy way, if you can call us that. Whereas in Australia, they actually get quite technical with the word, quite scientific even. Aussies can actually use it as a term of endearment, or actually they're not happy with you at all. So if they go, mate, good vibes, happy, let's keep going. If they're like, mate, oh, something's happened there. So it's not the word that does the talking, it's the tone and the delivery. But if you're not from a country that typically uses the word mate, don't feel like you have to. And honestly, I would say don't force it. Speak how you want to speak. Number 9.
See, in my mind, mate sounds good. Hey, mate. Like, that sounds good. Not the way I'm saying it, because it's probably coming out. The delivery is probably terrible. But the idea of putting mate at the end of sentences, like, that makes sense. It sounds good in my head. It feels uncomfortable to say, just because it's not like something we do here, ever, anywhere. But yeah, and I feel like if I did come over there and say it, you guys would be like, "Who's this Yankee Doodle Dandy guy coming in here talking about mate?"
Is tip. You don't need to tip. Well, hey, if you're American, you're probably very happy about that right now, or very shocked. But generally, the staff in Australia, they get paid fairly decently. It's a lot better than other countries,
you guys have told me.
Of course, there will be some businesses and practices in Australia who pay their serving staff absolutely terribly, which is not okay at all, but generally Australian staff are paid much better than other parts of the world. Not to mention you don't get that social judgment if you call in sick, whereas you would in the UK. Like with a lot of bosses, they would make you feel bad for calling a sickie. But in Australia, they do add surcharges onto your bill, particularly if it's a holiday. There will
Yeah, it's like that here. You call in sick to your job and they treat you like, or they, not you, but they treat it as you might as well have called in and told them you hate the company, you hate them, you hate, I don't know why it's such a personal thing. But a lot of people here, they go to work sick just because they don't want to call out, because it's so awkward when you call out here.
be a holiday surcharge on there, there could be a service charge on there. However, if the service you got was really special, you could tip the person serving you in Australia, and I'm sure they'd be very thankful and very grateful for that, but you almost wouldn't tip too much because they probably think you've forgotten your wallet or something. Number 10 is stand too close to someone in a queue. There are certain cultures where personal space isn't as big of a deal and people are more comfortable standing closer to each other. I would say in the UK and Australia, people like their personal space a little bit more. So
I feel like
you
it's
don't
the
want
same
to get
here.
right behind them and you don't want to get right up in someone's face when you're talking to them. You gotta, imagine there's that personal space bubble. And I say that because when you go to a theme park and it's really busy, or if you're queuing outside for that, new brunch cafe and you're really excited for it, you do sometimes forget these things in the real world. Like, oh, I'm gonna just shuffle forward a bit to keep everything moving. But then you're actually really close to someone and
I feel like it's not even just in the queue, like just in general. Respect people's space, their bubble. And, there's, unless you're in like this super crowded room where, everybody's kind of shoulder to shoulder, I don't see why people have to be super close to each other. And it drives me crazy. I know people here who, what do we call them? Close talkers. When they talk to you, they get like, right here, and they want to stand like right in your face when they're talking to you. Like, I don't like that. That drives me crazy.
you can smell their shampoo and it's kind of like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. So Aussies, they really do appreciate their personal space, and if you respect it, they'll respect yours, so it's win-win. Now you're probably thinking, Sam, these tips are all very well and good, but isn't Australia really expensive to visit and live in? Well, it's not as expensive as you think, and there's these 8 incredible things that are completely free in Australia that completely shocked me as a Brit. So click this video here to go find out what they are. Thank you so much for watching.
That was fun. That was interesting. And yeah, those are definitely things that I would think you don't want to do when you visit anywhere. Not just Australia, but it makes sense. Yeah, that was fun. And don't forget, let me know what, if anything, you've seen or heard tourists do when they come to Australia. That's just crazy that you just had to scratch your head on, especially if they were American. But yeah, That was fun. Thank you for checking this out with me, and I hope to see you in the next one.